Collaborating with other people and just learning techniques is the best way to improve. But overall, don't be afraid to try something. If it doesn't work, great. You're not going to commit malpractice by trying something new.
Welcome to Hot Docket, the show where we talk about winning marketing strategies that have built the most successful law firms.
Join us every 2 weeks for the latest trends and tactics to grow your law firm.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Hot Docket podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the art of deposition. It's going to be interesting for me because I know zero about deposition. I don't know. What's your experience with depot?
Depot. I like the way you said it. Uh-huh. But I think any time we're speaking with a lawyer about trial or litigation or depositions, we gain the most experience from it because we don't have that much. And we're typically talking about marketing or technology or how to improve intake and all that sort of stuff where our skill set is. So I'm definitely excited to learn today.
Same here. So let's get this thing started. Today we have with us Joseph Gates of Gates Law Firm, a boutique trial lawyer in the Little Rock, Arkansas market. Joseph, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you decided to become a lawyer and just a little bit about that journey?
Yeah. So becoming a lawyer. When I was in college, I had a psychology degree, and so I knew that bought me more school. So my junior year, I just decided to take the LSAT. Did not do good the first go around, but tried again and got a pretty good score to get into the University of Arkansas, which I'm really proud of to be an alum. My mother would say I was destined to be a trial lawyer at like age of 4 because I just always argued the exceptions. And I'm paying for my raising because my oldest daughter, who is 8 now, does the exact same thing to me. So I don't know. Maybe she'll want to do that or not, but I'm definitely, everything's a negotiation. Everything's an argument. So, but I'm not good with my hands. So I just use my mind and my voice, I guess, to make a living.
I'm the exact same way. My wife calls it tit for tat. I don't think it's tit for tat. I'm making a point. I'm making an argument.
Right.
But right. It depends on who you ask, I guess, right?
Right. And, arguing is good. That's how this country was founded, on arguments. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing if the voice gets raised a little bit sometimes to be passionate about your point.
All right. That's next time I have an argument with Gary, I'll say arguing is good. And that'll buy me a little space, a little time.
Yeah, it's constitutional. Just say you're being a good American citizen about arguing.
Yeah, that's great. All right, I'll try it out. So is there anything unique in the Little Rock market that makes either, your job as litigating or marketing for the cases unique?
I wouldn't necessarily say Little Rock specific. I mean, it is the capital of Arkansas, but generally speaking, Arkansas is a small state and we all know each other. So in some aspects that can be very helpful that opposing counsel and I go way back and, I may even know them from before becoming a lawyer, but sometimes that can be bad if, things get crossways and, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So everyone knows each other and that's what makes it unique compared to other states. And on the plaintiff side, it's not as, everyone competes for the case at the beginning, but whoever gets the case after, we all, on the plaintiff side, we all kind of collaborate together, especially through like the Arkansas Trial Lawyer Association. And it's can be, iron sharpens iron, and we all kind of work together to build up what's the best result. And I think that is unique for Arkansas compared to other states. Part of the American Association for Justice and some other national trial lawyer groups. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case across the country, where it seems to be that most plaintiff lawyers are more isolated in their firm, whereas here it's a lot more collaborative across firms.
And since we're talking about, the art of depot, and that's today's theme, can you tell us a little bit about, if you're a trial lawyer and you want to get better at the depot side of things, what should these folks be doing to improve that skill set?
Sure. So for me, when I started out as a baby trial lawyer, I went to an advertising firm that I was handed 125 cases at a given time and said, good luck. So a lot of how I learned was through failure. And I would highly recommend just fail. Fail's fine. Failing's great. Things don't work. That's learn from it. Read the transcripts after they're done. I think that's something that I struggle with myself, but I would highly encourage everyone to read the transcripts after, not just preparing for that particular case, but trying to see how it plays out. A lot of times we video depositions, and so watch the videos as well. So there's some self-study, broader. I mentioned that was part of the American Association for Justice, and they have a deposition college. And so I highly recommend people attend those. There are books. Paul Scopter and Philip Miller wrote an excellent book called Advanced Depos. I'm actually giving a talk tomorrow on depositions, and so I've got my copy here, and it's full of tabs. And I refer to this yearly, not yearly, monthly. And so, I mean, of course, collaborating with other people and just learning techniques is the best way to improve. But overall, don't be afraid to try something. If it doesn't work, great. You're not gonna commit malpractice by trying something new.
Can you tell us some of the common mistakes people often make?
From what a common mistake is going in. You need to have a plan before you walk into the door. So if you don't have a plan, that's a problem. And what I typically do is create an outline of various topics that I want to get accomplished in the deposition. So spending time beforehand, it's not just you're waking up and you're going to go in there and ask a bunch of questions. Have a plan beforehand. The other thing is recognizing that, at least on the civil plaintiff side, or civil litigation generally, trials are few and far between these days. So the deposition is the trial. Treat it just like you're in front of a judge and a jury. Take it seriously. Work towards, we want to prepare for trial. So treat the deposition as if it's a bunch of deposition clips, like video clips that will be used later. So having that intentionality, I think, is not everyone takes it that seriously.
Makes sense. So as a trial lawyer, I feel like referrals are a hugely important part of your practice. Have there been any strategies you've had to get more referrals or generate those new relationships that you've found particularly effective?
I've joined a lot of the trial lawyer community groups, like I said, the Arkansas Trial Lawyers, American Association for Justice. Being out in the community, I mean, ultimately, success matters. So being good at your job is the best way to get a referral. But as far as attorney referrals, is just getting out in the community, serving, on the boards. And other aspects like that. For me, that's been my journey. Is I'm primarily referral based. I don't have like a big marketing campaign or anything like that. Usually, one of my clients, there's a 1 degree separation between me and the client. Either I know them somehow through a friend network or a lawyer network.
Yeah, and I think about referral network and building that up. A lot of times, it can be an artificial process. And obviously organic is best. But just having those collisions and not car collisions. I mean, like collisions between people, I think just raises the probability that you get those referrals.
Yep, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So like on the topic of marketing that works versus maybe strategies that don't, I'd love to hear from you, what marketing you have tried. I know it's not a big source of business for you, which totally makes sense given your market, but I'd still love to hear, what was successful and what maybe would you recommend folks don't spend their time and money on?
Well, I am not an expert in this area, so lean on you guys for help on that. So for me, I pay someone to help with my social media. I think that I've been told that it helps, just for the branding side. I think being authentic really helps. I've embraced that. The cases that I work on are usually difficult and someone else's problem, and that I bring a skill set of hard work, and I know that sounds cliche, but willing to dig in and work a case for a long time. Most of my cases take multiple years before they're done, and been able to figure out a cash flow to sustain that in between cases. But as far as dollar spends and stuff like that, honestly, I'm the wrong guy for that. I think people find me genuine, and that's just been that's the way I've been getting business. I've been blessed by that.
Yeah, I'd love to circle back to depot because, you brought up something interesting in that, which is your cases take a long time to, your cash flow isn't as predictable, right? And I think a large part of that is just the type of cases that you're working. I'd love to hear how depot for, let's say, catastrophic truck accident case might differ from, I don't know, run-of-the-mill car accident. Like, what is the difference in process?
Well, I'll give a concrete example. So last month, I had a decision to make that a defendant on a car crash lived out of state, and I knew my margins were kind of going to be kind of small on that particular case. So I just decided, in lieu of paying for a hotel and an airplane, that I just did the deposition through Zoom. The upside to that was, I got to sleep in my own bed the night before, and I got to sleep in my own bed the day of the deposition. But the other thing, a practical thing, is I asked my court reporter who did the Zoom to just hit the record button. So now I've got a video and a transcript essentially for the price of the court reporter. I wouldn't do that for every case. If it is a contested catastrophic case, I take it very seriously, and I want to be in the room, because even doing it through Zoom, you can get 90% there, right? But I mean, there is something about being in the room and feeling the energy and feeling how body language and how all that's going, that it's hard to do through Zoom or through video conferencing. Like right now, like we're in separate places. I think this is going well, but if we were in the room, we could bounce off each other just a little bit better. So for a more catastrophic case, I definitely want to be in the room.
Yeah, and I think that actually ties kind of interestingly back to a conversation we had earlier in the podcast with a guy Eric Baum, who is building virtual, like remote depot software, right? So just enabling that process and making it a little bit easier and cheaper for everybody. And I think the most common kind of pushback he said he got too is people want to feel like they're in the room. They want to feel that presence. And so I think like what you're saying is pretty much right on the money for what he was saying his biggest sell problem is to solve.
Well, who knows what those Apple glasses or whatever, that we can just put those on.
Crazy.
Virtual reality, and it'll all work out. But no, I think there's something about the human connection, especially in these type of cases. The human element is what drives the case, and so being in the room, having that interaction, really matters.
That makes sense. Are there any cases you'd want to give as an example that kind of make you happy to be a trial lawyer?
Yes. So I'll give one example. I do products liability cases, and the thing I love about a products liability case, that's where a product fails and cause catastrophic injury. Those are mechanisms for change. The classic example, of course, I was too young to work on this, but I'm sure y'all are familiar with the Ford Pinto case, where people who were rear-ended in a Ford Pinto, where the gas can was situated, it would explode and cause fire and death, mayhem, just gnarly stuff. There was a literal memo by the Ford executives that said it would be cheaper for us to pay out the individual claims than it would to recall the vehicles. So classic profits over people, right? They made the Ford company made a conscious decision to not take care of their customers because it would cost a little bit more money. And the money we were talking about in between the two is not like a grave amount, but with a recall, I guess there could be some negative press with that. But it would have been the right thing to do because it would save lives. So that memo eventually was found, and Ford was exposed for that horrible corporate decision of valuing the bottom line over their customers. And that led to a change where that model, and for really most vehicles, don't really have that issue anymore. So personally, I've been a part of a couple of cases like that. I hesitate to give too much detail because of confidentiality agreements, which is another bane of my existence. But I'll broad stroke, I was a part of, it wasn't quite like the Takata airbag cases, but it was adjacent to that, where a motor vehicle company changed that line. So what caused the mechanism that killed my client was no longer part of the manufacturing process. And so I think about that case, and I think about that family, how they had to endure the loss of their son who just had a baby girl. So that was, I think I just had my oldest daughter at the same time. So I felt a kinship to the deceased on that he didn't die in vain because it led to the vehicles being safer moving forward. Another example was an elevator case that I was a part of, that home residential elevators left too much space between the chassis and then the doors that would close. And so children could get stuck in there. And when that would happen and the elevator moved up, when it came back down, it actually suffocated this poor boy, and with his mom outside, having to hear her son die. That was a gruesome case, but through that, the Consumer Protection Safety Commission, which is part of the United States government, finally issued a mandatory recall for all home elevators because of that problem. So now they will be created differently, so that amount of space won't be as big, so children won't get stuck and have to endure families won't have to endure the loss of their children. So those are just two examples off the top of my head where I wake up and I'm like, hey, the world's a little bit better place because I did a little bit of legal work on it.
Are there any of the active product liability cases that you could think of right now, whether it's like pressure cooker or any of these other ones, that you think this needs to happen kind of tomorrow? This is a huge issue and you want it to fall into this camp of change?
Removing the mass product liability ones, like the mass torts for pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't think of anything that's always, I can't think of anything off the top of my head on that. Right now I found myself dealing with some child sex abuse cases. And so now I'm like, yeah, we all need to be more aware of predatory behavior and grooming process. But I can't think of a current products case I'm working on that's like, hey, we need to recall that. But they exist. And what's unique about my profession that I'm proud to be a part of is it's usually a trial lawyer figures out first, and then the press figures out what the trial lawyer is figuring out. And then the press puts media pressure, and then eventually government acts. But it starts with the trial lawyer. It's rarely that a journalist figures that out first. It's usually a case that a trial lawyer is working up, and then they work it up, and then the press gets a hold of it. And then if there's enough media pressure, then it actually leads to change at a congressional level. I can think specifically of the GM ignition case where that happened.
Yeah, that's a virtuous cycle. Okay, so just to lighten up at the end here a little bit, we're going to finish out, Joseph, with a little game. We always have one at the tail end. Today's game is hopefully not terrible. It's always a crapshoot, but hopefully it's a good game. We've got fact or fiction. So I'm going to read off 5 statements, and I want you to tell me which you think are fact and which are fiction. We'll go back and forth. I'll do the first one, then Andrew do number 2. Okay, number 1. France is responsible for giving us French fries.
I would say false. That's 2 on the nose.
Yep, nailed it. Belgium.
The human body has 3 lungs.
False.
That was almost like so stupid that I thought it might trick.
Right. Yeah, that's why I hesitate. It's like, well, I've seen there's two, but is there something I don't know?
Right. Am I forgetting the third lung? Okay. Number 3. In Switzerland, it's illegal to flush the toilet after 10 p.m. in an apartment building.
Oh, man. Never been to Switzerland. That is such a unique thing. I am going to guess true. That's true.
That one's actually false. It's noise regulation, but there's no specific anti-flush rule.
Okay.
So you can flush.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not
There's
yet,
still time.
Right.
We can lobby.
A group of hippopotami is called a bloat.
I want this to be true because that's funny.
You got it.
And wrap it up here. It's illegal to mispronounce Arkansas.
Yes, that's actually when our founders fought the Revolutionary War, that was part of the problem. Yes, it is Arkansas.
And that is it. Thanks for joining us, Joseph, on today's episode. Great chatting.
Thanks.
All right, depot, something I knew zero about going in.
It still bothers me that you pronounce it like that.
Arkansas?
No.
Oh.
Depot. You say depot.
I thought you were saying I should be saying Arkansas.
Arkansas, if you want to do it really bad.
I think it's Arkansas. All right. Well, I might be going to jail if that's illegal. I knew our forefathers fought for it. Hard to say. Anyways, good seeing everybody, and we'll catch you on the next Hot Docket podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Hot Docket. We're your hosts, Bobby and Andrew, founders of MeanPub, the marketing agency for ambitious law firms.
Have questions about marketing or anything we covered today? Email us at bark@meanpug.com